Hey Pleasant Grove, welcome to our Midweek Bible Study, session number 3. Hope you guys had a good Easter, and it's good to be with you today as we continue to go through the book of James. We'll be in chapter 3 today. Just to kind of recap here, James wrote the book. We know him to be the half-brother of Jesus, but also he was a prominent leader in the Jerusalem church and just a leader in the Christian world altogether in this time. He wrote it to the 12 tribes in dispersion, as it says in the beginning of the chapter. So who that is, just Jewish Christians. He probably wrote it most likely to his Jerusalem church and the members of it, but he just wrote it to Jewish Christians in general, wherever they may be. We chose James because it's a very practical book, has a lot of application, almost every verse we can use and apply to our lives, but it really applies to what we're going through right now with the coronavirus and this pandemic and the trials we're going through. We can really use this book to see how our attitudes need to be, to see what we can do, and just James shows us how through all these things we're going through, what the best version of us can be as Christians. So in chapter 1, we focused on the very beginning when it talked about having joy in trials. Because of the many trials we're going through right now, we're going through a lot of the similar trials, but individually we're going through some different trials that not everybody's going through, and it's tough, really tough on some of us, tougher on some than others. But James is just talking about here is when we go through any type of trial or tribulation that we need to have joy in it. A few reasons for that. Number one, we know as Christians that trials and tribulations are going to come. We're promised that many times, and so we know they're coming. Number two, we can have joy in them because we know that no trial or tribulation is bigger than God. And if we lean on Him in our trials and in our tribulations, He's going to bring us through, and we're going to become better people and better Christians because of it, and our faith will be stronger. In James chapter 2, we focused on the second part of that chapter where it talks about having faith in action and how real faith produces real action. We saw a couple examples James gave us of Abraham and Rahab and their faith in action. Abraham was told to sacrifice Isaac, and that's a tough decision to sacrifice your son, and you're told to do that. That can't be easy. Obviously, super hard, but he made the decision to do it, and he was on his way preparing it. God ultimately intervened and brought a sacrifice for him, but Abraham was going to do it, and his faith had action, and his actions proved how strong his faith really was. Rahab's life was threatened by the decisions she made of what God asked her to do, but her actions proved her faith. And so what James is just trying to say here is if you have real faith, if you have genuine faith, your actions are going to prove that, and real faith is going to lead and produce real actions. So let's go ahead and dive in. So chapter 3 has 2 sections again, but this time it's kind of a problem and solution. The beginning talks about a problem that we have individually, each and every one of us have, and then the second part goes into what we need and how we can fix it. And so let's go ahead and get started. It starts out here, and it talks about taming the tongue and what our words can do and how destructive our tongues can be and how evil it can be. He compares at the beginning to the rudder of a ship and how a ship is huge, but a rudder is real small, but it controls where the ship goes, and the captain controls the rudder, and that controls where the ship goes. And so our tongue might be small, but it controls our big body, and so we need to be careful about what we say, how we say it, and James just kind of wants to show us that here. And so he compares it later on to a fire that can't be tamed. Verse 8, it says, "But no human can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison." Restless evil and deadly poison, 2 things he compares the tongue to. Those aren't things we like. Those aren't things we want. But that's what our tongue can do if not used the right way. So he just talks about in chapter 2, how we just talked about faith in action and how actions can speak louder than words, and you can't have faith. If your actions don't prove your faith, do you really have faith at all? But he wants to show us here that our words are important as well, maybe just as important, because what we say can cause a lot of destruction. It talks about in chapter 3 how a small fire, the starting of a small fire, can turn into a deadly, huge wildfire. And so something so small can go to big. That's what the relaying theme here in chapter 3 is. It just keeps going over and over how something so small like our tongue can cause so much destruction. So what we say really reflects our identity. In chapter 3, verse 9, it says, "With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be." Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. So what he's trying to say here is, it's pretty obvious here, is that you can't have good and bad from the same thing. You can't be praising the Lord one day and worshiping Him and all that, and then the next day go out and gossip and slander other people that it says here are made in God's likeness. We know that all man is made in God's image, and so when we go out and do that, even though they might not be living the life we think they should be, or their best life, they're still made in God's image, and there's still opportunity for those people to come and become children of God. And so with the same mouth we worship is the same mouth we gossip and slander. And so that's a problem. That's destruction. That's hypocrisy. And that's one thing we don't want to be doing as Christians. And so what James is trying to say here is you can't have good and bad from the same time. It's not right if you're doing that, and we're all guilty of it at some point, is that it's a problem. And we can't tame our tongue. It's a restless evil, as he said. So he goes on here in verses 13 through 18 through the end of the chapter to talk about the solution to this and how we can tame our tongue as best as possible, because we know we can never be perfect and never not sin, but we can cut out the doing it continuously. And that's the real problem, is we're going to sin, and we know that we're going to sin. But if we can cut back, if we can grow in His Word and become closer to Him and have a better faith, we can cut out the continual of doing the same sins over and over. And that's the mouth is probably the worst one, as James is saying here. And so the solution is wisdom from above, genuine wisdom from heaven. We show our wisdom by our deeds that is done in humility. And so the deeds that we do that are for the right reasons, not the one. He goes on to say that it's not the deeds that we do out of selfish ambition, the ones that we do so other people can see, the ones that we do just so that we can say we're better Christians. It's the one that we do truly for the right reasons, because we love God, because we want to further His kingdom. It's those deeds that show that we have true wisdom, that we've gained true wisdom. We need pure wisdom, which only comes from heaven. Verses 17 and 18 say, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. So through this kind of wisdom, we can purify ourselves in righteousness that will help us to control our tongues. Now, as we can see here, he's not just saying that this wisdom is, the only reason for this wisdom is to control our tongues, because it leads to, it's pure, first of all, and it's peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. So this wisdom that we can gain from only God, from heaven above, is going to lead to our actions becoming more righteous, to our mouths becoming more righteous, and to us to gain these qualities that he's showing, to be submissive and considerate, peace-loving, full of mercy, bearing good fruit, impartial, and sincere. And so if we can dive into His Word, if we can grow in His Word and through His Word and through these trials we're facing, we know that He uses these trials to grow us. And so if we can be in His Word, if we can be in prayer, if we can use these trials we're going through to lean on Him and to grow through them and to become better Christians, that's going to help us to tame our tongue, because we know that our tongue can do so much destruction. If you speak without thinking, as we always say, think before you speak. If you're not, and you just say something outlandish or whatever it is, that can do a lot of destruction. And you might not mean it. It's something that, quick tempers or anger can cause, but we know how much destruction just something little as our tongue can do. And so through this wisdom that we can gain, we can help control our tongue. We can help to think before we speak, and not only just think before we speak, but think of what's the right way to say it and how to say it, because we know how important that is. So just kind of in a little bit of a conclusion here, the three things we picked up from these three chapters, the three main things, because there's more than just what we've covered. But number one, we should be joyful in our current trials because of who we have, Jesus. Number two, we need to be living out our faith. And number three, we need to be seeking heavenly wisdom from above to produce righteousness and control the one thing that our body that can cause the most destruction, and that is our tongue. And so we just need to be we've said this in every sermon we've done so far, and every weekly Bible study we've done and every announcement video. We need to be continually diving into the Word every day, no matter what's going on, but especially right now with this time we have. We need to be diving into the Word. We need to be using these trials we're going through to see what God is wanting to show us and what His will is and how we can grow through that and what wisdom is in that. And then we just need to be living out our faith. We come here every Sunday and Wednesday when it's open and we talk about our faith, and we need to be living it out right now. And we need to be figuring out what the best way for that is. We need to be seeking God's will and what we need to be doing right now and how we need to be doing it. And so let's continue to do that. Let's continue to grow in Him, and let's continue to try to honor Him and to grow His kingdom during this time. So we're still praying for you. If you guys need anything, go ahead and reach out. Share these videos. Try to get our name out to people that don't have a church or aren't in their study right now or anything. Try to reach out and show them that we're still doing studying. We're still growing through this time, even though we can't meet. So continue to be doing that. Continue to be in prayer for our church leaders, for Brother Will, as he's making decisions, and the deacons, what's best for our church and everything. Continue to give to support the church and to support missions and everything. Continue to pray for our leaders of government, our local leaders, our national leaders, and everything as they're making hard decisions as well. And so we love you guys. Thanks for tuning in and for the support, and can't wait to see you next time.